with Wiki. Hi, I'm Pete Forsyth with Wiki Strategies, and this is going to be our fourth installment of what we're calling Wikipedia 15 for 15. So we're doing 15 interviews in celebration of Wikipedia's 15th birthday, which is Friday, January 15th, 2016. And today I have the honor of interviewing Catherine Cheney, who is a journalist. She covers the West Coast global development community for Devex, and she's also the West Coast coordinator. I believe that's the right title. You can correct me if not. For the Solutions Journalism Network, and she's based here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So welcome, Catherine.
Thanks for having me, Pete.
Absolutely, and maybe you could start off by telling us a little bit about what is solutions journalism and what is the Solutions Journalism Network trying to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Solutions Journalism Network is a New York-based nonprofit organization, and it's basically trying to spread the practice of solutions journalism. And the way we define that is journalists reporting on responses to problems as rigorously as they might otherwise cover the problems themselves. What we often say is that problems scream and solutions whisper, and a lot of reporters tend to gravitate toward the problems. But if we report on the responses to the social problems, that's where you can really see real change. So just trying to spread that practice change throughout the country, around the world. There's a team in New York working with newsrooms, with editors, with freelance journalists. And what I'm trying to do is just build a community around this idea of solutions journalism and try to spread the practice in the Bay Area.
Okay. Well, I think any person or organization or group of people that are trying to influence knowledge or the way that that knowledge is shared in society contends with those issues, right? It's really easy to point the finger and say, this agency is corrupt, or this person committed a crime, but for information to be actually useful to getting to a better place, that's a little more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of confusion around when we say what is and what isn't solutions journalism. There are some really good resources on our website, solutionsjournalism.org. But a lot of people think that it means good news or fluff pieces, and it definitely does not mean that. In fact, David Bornstein, who co-founded the Solutions Journalism Network, talks about how a great solution story should read almost like a detective story, and it's the details of problem solving. So I think there's some parallels with Wikipedia in terms of how those pieces read.
Yeah, and I think that's I think working on a complicated Wikipedia article often feels a lot like detective work. So I think there's a lot of resonance there.
Totally.
So in these interviews, I've been really starting off with the question of what do you see as the impact of 15 years of Wikipedia? And before we started the interview, you were telling me you actually had a pretty interesting introduction to the idea of Wikipedia. So maybe you could tell us a little about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my first recollection of Wikipedia, this goes back to high school. I'm, I guess, 10 years out of high school at this point. So about 10 years ago, I was a senior in high school, and I represented the state of California. I'm from Southern California, at this conference for high school journalists from around the country at the Museum in Washington, D.C. And this was the Al Newharth Free Spirit and Journalism Conference. I'm still very involved with this program. Great program, just kind of exposes students to the First Amendment and an appreciation for the First Amendment and what it means. But all of us, at that point, there was a boy and a girl representing each state. We met John Siegenthaler, a close friend of Al Newharth's and a strong advocate for First Amendment rights, but also the subject of quite a big controversy at Wikipedia, which you could probably understand even better than I. But that was my first exposure to kind of what Wikipedia was as a senior in high school, meeting John Siegenthaler, and sort of having this concern, really skepticism for.
Well, he had a very personal reason for the skepticism he had, right? He had a pretty miserable experience with Wikipedia.
He did.
Can you recap that a little bit for anyone who might not know about it?
Yeah, basically. So my understanding, an anonymous user created a short article about Siegenthaler that was untrue, that was defamatory, and he basically contacted Wikipedia. That content went away, but I think it just sort of though he was one of the strongest defendants of First Amendment rights, introduced him to some of the complexities and challenges of everyone having a voice online, and that voice sometimes going unchecked. And, that can create a lot of unfortunate situations like the one he experienced. And you may know more beyond that, but that was kind of my, as a senior in high school, understanding of what happened.
Well, it's been written up well, and I think we can put a link, under the video if people want to dig into his story with Wikipedia. But I'm curious. So when he, introduced it to you, to the fellows, so he was basically presenting it as like, here's a bad thing that you shouldn't be involved in your careers as journalists, or how did it go?
I think, if I recall, thinking 10 years back, I think it was more, this field is changing. It was in some ways the early days of citizen journalism, right, which continues to explode with Twitter, which didn't exist then 10 years ago. And I think it was just, in his work, and he was basically saying, I just had this very difficult personal experience with a new technology that has a lot of potential for good, but a lot of potential to harm people too, as it just did me. You are going, as young journalists, you 17 and 18-year-olds, you're going to be facing new forms of communication, new definitions of what is a journalist and who writes that first draft of history. And, there are going to be some exciting opportunities, but there are also going to be some big challenges. Like I just experienced, you're going to have to confront that. I think that was kind of, so I wasn't as familiar with Wikipedia 10 years ago and thought, this is both an exciting tool, but it creates some real challenges for young journalists who believed in journalism as a craft and a profession, and that there are certain things you have to do in order to get the story right, and to kind of open it up to everyone to write that first draft of history that's so game changing in a good way, but creates some challenges. And so I think it was actually kind of helpful early on to just understand it's complicated.
Yeah. And so as you grew in your career and just as a citizen, and sort of along with the internet growing and changing, how did that perspective on Wikipedia evolve over the years? That was, you saying 2005, so that's been 10 years, right?
That was 2005. So I've pretty much worked in journalism ever since. In college, very active in student publications. My first job out of college was at Politico. I've worked with a few different new media outlets, and now I'm working with Devex, as you mentioned, covering global development. Super complex topic. I definitely look to Wikipedia as a resource, always applying skepticism, which is important in everything you do. But I actually really value the fact that you have a lot of different authors working on any given Wikipedia page. You have people like yourself who are very passionate about getting it right. So I consider it a trusted first source. It's always the first, it's an initial source to kind of understand the topic and its complexity and see where the links might lead. And again, I would say this whole idea of problems scream and solutions whisper. I just wrote a story. I'm working on a big piece, but I did a piece for Devex on fair trade and fair trade coffee. Super complex topic. Wikipedia is a great starting point to see, okay, there are a lot of different perspectives here. There's a big backstory. There are
probably different certification systems.
Exactly. So, and I really appreciate that, it's not one voice owning that. It's not just Fair Trade USA or Fair Trade America, which are two very separate organizations with very different approaches. It's a community of people who have come together to tell this very complicated story. So I kind of take that as a starting point and then a jumping off point to do other interviews and to come up with, the story I want to tell. But I actually find that as a tool for solutions journalists who are looking kind of as a detective would at responses to problems, Wikipedia is a great starting point from which they then have to conduct further interviews, verify what they find there. But I've gone from being a little bit concerned about the impact Wikipedia might have on the field, I think initially learning from John Siegenthaler's example, to appreciative of Wikipedia as a tool for journalists.
Mm-hmm. And I think that that concept of Wikipedia as a starting point it's actually underscored by, there's research that Ed Chi of Google did. I don't know that he's published it, but he's demonstrated that in practice, when people are given a topic to explore and various websites and resources to explore, Wikipedia tends to be the first thing that they're looking at and helps launch them into more trusted sources, more authoritative sources. So it's, I think in that way the intention of Wikipedia and the way that people actually use it is maybe a little better aligned than people sometimes assume.
I agree. I mean, I've found certain things on Wikipedia, honestly, like academic papers that are super deep dives on topics that I might never have found in a news article on the topic, because it's not one reporter on deadline in 2 days trying to write a story on something. It is, maybe 30, 40 people coming together on a topic with this huge trail of information. And so I sometimes find it's a very helpful path to in-depth sources I wouldn't find otherwise. Yeah.
Right. So, something I'm really curious about is the nature of collaboration. So Wikipedia has such a unique approach to how people work together that is really designed to support people even of who don't even have a language in common, sometimes being able to do something together because the software tools make it possible, and is so rigorous about keeping a public record of everything that people go through. So like when you look at something like that, do you see echoes of how newsrooms are structured, of how people in your field tend to collaborate? Do you see things that Wikipedia maybe does better, or things that Wikipedia should do better based on the experience you have?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I can speak to sort of I would say, connections between the cross-border nature of Wikipedia and some of the news outlets I'm most excited about. So I think one of the things that media platforms could do better is, rather than just see themselves as pushing out content, see themselves as platforms for both consuming content, but also connecting an audience and building a community. And I think the very best news platforms have figured out how to do that. They're platforms. They both connect, inform, and inspire their audiences. They're not just content factories.
Is there an example or two that come to mind of news sites that are doing that well?
Of course, I'm biased because I spend most of my time on Devex. I think Devex is pretty interesting because we have a very targeted audience. We serve an audience of global development professionals. And so in addition to providing them with content, we are constantly looking for feedback, connecting them with each other. The whole motto and mission statement for Devex is do good, do it well. And so I think we really have to act as a platform in order to help development professionals do their jobs better, push content out to them, but really create a community, as Wikipedia has. Another, outside of my work, another platform that I've really been focused on is Medium. And Medium is getting a lot of voices involved, but not just pushing out content, creating conversations among communities. So I find that really compelling. I've worked with a couple other projects. One space I think the media could do a better job of stepping into, that Wikipedia certainly has stepped into, is cross-border communication and collaboration, and I find that space really exciting. So I helped with a media outlet called Al Monitor, which the whole idea was to help the Middle East tell its own story in its own words. So a big part of the Al Monitor model is translating content for a global audience to English mostly. And then I'm also working with a project called News Decoder, which is brand new, but targeting a younger audience and really just trying to, again, not just push out content, but drive a conversation, create a community across borders. And I think that those kinds of models can get us in a direction I think is important for our whole world, really, which is, I think it's really hard, even though our world is increasingly interconnected, it's also increasingly siloed in some ways, right? And I think it's so hard to drive home the point that we have shared problems in need of shared solutions. And so I think media platforms that can drive home that point, Medium's doing a good job, and I think Wikipedia does this too. Shared problems, shared solutions. I think models.
I guess I might place Wikipedia a little bit more at the end of like shared problems, shared description of the problem, right? Shared factual information that I would think as a Wikipedian that kind of approach to information could then support exploring for solutions, but that's something that sort of is outside the scope of Wikipedia.
Yeah, or understanding the yeah, understanding the things in need of fixing, really. Like, I mean, understanding the world as it is, and then because you have that basis of knowledge, coming together around solutions. Yeah. I agree.
Okay. Well, this is great, and I really look forward to talking to you some more about this. I think we're going to have a chance to do that a bit at the 15th birthday party on Saturday afternoon, or if not, at some event in the not too far off future. Before we wrap this up, do you have any thoughts about what you would like to see from the next 15 years, the next 5 years of Wikipedia? What kind of role you'd like to see it playing in the world that maybe it hasn't achieved yet?
Yeah, I'm to the extent that this is already going on, I'm not as aware of it, but I think the way that Wikipedia authors can work together more in coordination with journalists who already use Wikipedia as a tool, I think that would be a really powerful example of collaboration. I also wonder, and again, I just don't know what Wikipedia's plans are, but Wikipedia is so great for text content, and I don't know to what extent all the information we consume on social media and visual content, videos. I mean, I don't know to what extent that fits into the plans for Wikipedia, but I think that's how we consume information these days. It's very visual. It's very social media based, and I think to pull those tools into Wikipedia, but without taking away from part of what's so great about Wikipedia, that you can follow that trail of information. I'd like to see some solutions in that area. Probably a big challenge for Wikipedia to figure out, but I'm intrigued to follow.
It is a challenge, but I think it's a worthwhile one to take on.
Yeah.
All right, Catherine. Well, thank you so much for doing the interview, and I really look forward to talking to you some more about this.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it.